Welcome to 30-Minute Reviews. I am Adam, and a Happy New Year to everyone. This envelope that you may or may not have heard me, play with, has written on the back of it, because I picked this out in advance, the top 10 movies of 2021. Now, this is not the top 10 anything that I would typically do, or would do on Beware of Spoilers. This is just the top 10 movies. The 10 movies, in my opinion, that were the best of the year. That is, again, strictly my opinion. I have seen about 50 movies this year, but, that does not mean necessarily. If I have not listed a movie you like, it is possible that I have not seen it, which is not an indictment of the movie that is there. So I'm going to ask nicely that you please keep your thoughts about that to yourself. I don't need to receive emails like, hey, what about this one? Or, hey, what about this one? Or, hey, you had this on there above this, or anything like that. I don't need that. What the fuck? It's not necessary. It's not helpful. It's not conducive to anything. These are my opinion, my top 10 movies of the year. And then next week we'll do the Beware of Spoilers, where we talk about the top 10 anything, including video games and, books and other things like that. So, let's dive on in. So, number 10 was rough. I had a few options in this slot, and I couldn't quite figure out which one would be the best to occupy it. And I decided on Chongqi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, and let me tell you why. The movie does fall into the trap of the usual Marvel Studios third act, where everything big has to happen. You can't have just a small, grounded thing. And yeah, the post-credit scene is pretty, big in setting up where we're going from here, both of them. But it's visually interesting, beautiful to look at, and on top of it all, it's, the cast is all great, and even Trevor, who makes his return from Iron Man 3, even he's entertaining, and on top of that, at its core of this movie, it is a family drama, and unlike everything else from Marvel Studios this year, be it Eternals, be it Spider-Man No Way Home, be it anything else, this one stands alone. You can watch Shang-Chi without without having to jump in and without having to see 9 things before this. Abomination's there, Wong's there, and then you get to the post-credit scene and it's like, oh, well, now he's an Avenger. But you don't even need to have seen Endgame or anything like that to understand what's going on in this movie, and that's a big deal, I think, for a movie like this. And it's not like Loki, where it's entirely prelude. It's not like WandaVision, which is entirely connective tissue. Same thing with Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which is kind of superfluous, and Hawkeye, which is just not great. It is Marvel Studios' strongest outing of the year. The one that I was conflicted with putting on the list in its stead was Cruella. But Cruella was in contention because I was debating whether or not, the debate, Cruella was better than it had any right to be, but it was not good. It's good. I don't want to say it's bad, but it's better than expected is better. It's not as good as better as a good movie, which is why Shang-Chi beat it out to make the list. So number 9 is The Mitchells vs. the Machines, which is Lord & Miller's latest animated project it went to Netflix. It was originally called Connected, and it went to Netflix due to the pandemic. It's just a really fun animated movie. It's about this girl who wants to go to film school, and then her dad decides we're going to take a cross-country road trip to bring you to college. And, while they're on this road trip, the robot apocalypse happens, and AI becomes self-aware and starts trying to take over the world. And it's really funny, really heartfelt, and it really just hits everything that I was hoping this movie would hit. And it's so cute. Definitely worth the time to watch for anyone. And the animation style is so unique that it's like for that alone, it is very much worth your time to watch. You're gonna notice a trend among what movies made the top 10 list this year in terms of genre, because it's pretty sci-fi oriented, but I'm pretty sure you could have figured that based on my tastes. So that brings us to our next one, which is also science fiction. Number 8 is Free Guy, which was one of those movies that I had no expectations for and left surprisingly happy. Like, it kind of was like Geostorm, where Geostorm had, a kind of like I was there to watch the disaster porn, but at the same time, when I left, I was like, oh, the espionage and all of that really works and clicks in this movie in a really interesting and cool way. For Free Guy, it's silly. It's about this guy. He's an AI who falls in love with, in a video game, who falls in love with a player, and he has to and he has to come to terms with the fact that he's AI. And I think that it handles that very well. It handles themes of what is reality versus what is not reality better than, say, The Matrix Resurrections does. And it's just a fun watch all around. And Ryan Reynolds is playing his Ryan Reynolds-iest character he can play. Jodie Comer does a great job in this movie as well. Very, very fun. Very, very interesting to watch. It's the kind of thing where you watch it and you're like, oh, this is a much harder science fiction than I went into this expecting. Now, number 7, Swan Song, not to be confused with the book that I put out 2 years ago, which, thanks to you guys, made it to the bestseller list a few weeks ago. Swan Song is the story of Cameron, played by Mahershala Ali, who, it turns out, has terminal cancer or terminal illness of some kind. And while he can't be saved, to spare his family the grief, he can keep the diagnosis secret from his family, and the company who does this will make a clone of him and download all of his memories into the clone, and the clone will step into his life as if nothing happened. And then the family won't know he died, and it'll just be that. So what you get is this exploration of the 5 stages of grief as we watch Cameron watch this clone be created and come into his life, and take control of his, take control of things. And it's really an interesting kind of, look. And again, like Free Guy, it does what science fiction does best, and it offers a look at, parts of the human condition using science as a, as a medium for it. And on top of it, it does this really cool thing where it's got some futuristic technology, but it's not too outlandish. That's a big thing for me. Number 6 is Coda, which I got to see a little earlier this year, and that's not why it's on the list. But Coda is the story of a girl who wants to go away to college, and she is the only child who can hear in her family. Both her parents are deaf, and her brother is deaf as well. So she's the only one who can hear in the family. And the drama that ensues from this girl wanting to go away to school, while everyone around her can't hear, and and they have to adjust their life to this, in the small, fishing town in Massachusetts. It's heartbreaking, and it's very well done. So I think the actress's name is Amila Jones, who was in the lead, and she did a really great job, really selling this movie. And if you haven't seen it yet, it's on Apple TV Plus. Same with Swan Song. Both are very good. Number 5, The Suicide Squad, which is James Gunn's iteration of Suicide Squad, and it's just, this is a movie that I watched and I was like, it is just so well done and so entertaining that it is more than it has any right to be. Like, it's bizarre and ridiculous with the characters that are in this movie, like Polka Dot Man and Ratcatcher and, Bloodsport and all of these, DC characters and DC, like, C and D listers that are there. But at the same time, like, and they're fighting fucking Star of the Conqueror and the Thinkers there. You have all of these characters, and yet at the same time, you feel this, you can tell there's something more to it. And this movie is a really, it's an indictment, really, of U.S. foreign policy in Latin America, and it does that very well. So it's one of those things where it's like a lot of people may not have watched it because they may have thought, rightfully, that it is a sequel to 2018 or 2016 Suicide Squad movie, but it is nothing like the first one, and it is so well done. I can't wait to see what James Gunn does next besides the Peacemaker show. And I think that was the other thing. It's like that, there's a scene where, Bloodsport and, Bloodsport and Peacemaker are just walking through this camp killing people. And, trying to do it in the most over-the-top, ridiculous ways as they go through. And it is so funny. Let's see. Where do we go next? Number 4 is a documentary. It's called Summer of Soul, or When the Revolution Could Not Be Televised. Now, if you have not heard of this movie, you can watch it on Hulu. And it's the story of the Harlem Cultural Festival that happened in 1969, the same time as Woodstock. It's kind of counter-programming to Woodstock. And it is about the evolution of music in this era and how things changed and all of that. Very much worth your time to watch this movie because it is so interesting to see how, and the thing is, it's kind of like a catalyzing event that no one's really heard of, and I think that probably the saddest, and it's shot like a concert video, like a traditional concert, like, what's the word I'm looking for, like a concert documentary, like we've seen time and time again from major pop stars, but it's done just like that. And I think if you watch this movie, you can see how music, at the end of the 60s going into the 70s, began to evolve and began to shape what we see now even. A very interesting look at that. Number 3 is Dune. I don't think anyone is surprised that Dune is so high up on my list, because, and I think most of it comes down to, it's a faithful adaptation of the book. It doesn't shy away from some of the other topics that the book does, be it me and Peter did 2 hours on Beware of Spoilers talking about Dune, but, it doesn't shy away from, the big, fundamental questions that Dune poses. What is the role of religion in government? What happens if religion, gets too much power in government? How does government interact with religion, and how does that impact, the people? What happens when the Messiah truly does come again, or is thought to have come again? How do people react to that? And it is so well done. Timothée Chalamet is great as Paul Atreides, and Zendaya in a very small role as Chani is great. Beautifully directed, beautiful effects. Bravo to not Damien Chazelle. I was working on something last night, and Damien Chazelle was the last person that I wrote about. So, Denis Villeneuve did a great job with this movie, and it is just all around great. It's going to be coming back to HBO Max. If you have not seen it, you absolutely have to see this movie. The next 2 are probably not going to be surprises either if you've listened to this. Number 2 is Tick, Tick, Boom, which is Lin-Manuel Miranda's directorial debut. It is an adaptation of the stage play of the same name by Jonathan Larson, who went on to make, make Rent. And it's the story of a guy who is approaching his 30th birthday and feels like he hasn't accomplished anything. So he gets this manic depression, kind of, where he's like, I have to do something by the time I turn 30, because he's looking at other people in his life, or other people in his industry, and he's like, look what they did, and he feels like, hitting 30 is a deadline. If he doesn't do it by the time he hits 30, then he'll never amount to anything. And it's such a, an existential, great movie, and it really fits in with other things that, like, Lin-Manuel Miranda has done in the past, with the idea of, like, what is the legacy we leave behind? What is, who are we? And all of that. Like, in Hamilton, one of the big lines is, who lives, who dies, who tells our story? And it is that kind of thing, and it is really the same thing that we're dealing with, made all the sadder by the fact that he did die by the time he was 35. He had an aneurysm, and it really just adds an extra level of, weirdly prescience, as if he knew that this was coming. And Andrew Garfield just nails the role. Andrew Garfield had a fantastic year this year, between that and redeeming his Spider-Man in Spider-Man No Way Home. I probably should put a spoiler warning, but at this point, if you haven't seen Spider-Man No Way Home yet, you're not going to. He did a fantastic job in this movie. Alexandra Shipp, I didn't know could sing, but she could sing very well, and she was very good in this movie as well. Vanessa Hudgens, also great in this movie. I can't remember any more of the cast members off the top of my head, but all around, just a fantastic movie. And number one, I think will also surprise no one if they've listened to Beware of Spoilers, Nightmare Alley, which was just a fantastic noir in the modern day. Not set in the modern day, but done in the modern day. It was a movie that I watched, and after I saw the Batman trailer before it, then I watched this movie and I left, and I'm like, I really fucking want to see the Batman now. So this movie really turned me around on that, which, is not why it's number one on the list, but it is so well done. Guillermo del Toro is a generational talent as a director. And then, Bradley Cooper is proving himself to be a very versatile actor. And to think that, everyone on the planet was introduced to him through The Hangover, and yet here he is playing Stan Carlisle, one of the most unapologetically douchey guys. Not douchey, but, he's just, not a great guy. He's a snake oil salesman, and it's, unapologetic in that regard. And it's just so well done. Rooney Mara is great. Cate Blanchett's great. Ron Perlman has a small role, and he's really good in it. It is all around just a fantastic movie that, if you haven't seen it yet, go to. I think it's only in theaters right now, but I'm assuming it'll go to Hulu because it's a Searchlight movie. It's the story of a guy who, is down on his luck. I'll put it nicely. He's down on his luck and goes to work at a carnival, and he becomes not a fortune teller, but kind of like a mentalist, and starts doing that. Then he starts going and takes a show on the road on his own, and he meets with a woman, and they start conning people. She's a psychiatrist, so she knows people's secrets, so he can use that to get in and make people think he's legitimate. And it is everything about the movie is so well done, and the ending it hits home better than the 1947 version of this same movie, when the 1947 movie ends on an optimistic note. This one doesn't, and yeah, you can pick out what the ending is going to be, a third of the way through the movie, when there's a great scene with Willem Dafoe in a what's it called, and Bradley Cooper in a diner. But you can pick out where this movie is headed and where what the finish line is for Stan, but still, it is so well done. Everything about this movie is great. Check this movie out, and then it is there is nothing that this movie is not going to do besides make you excited for other noir and make you want to go in and this is a movie that made me re-download the Criterion app and made me want to sit down and watch every noir movie that I could possibly find. So yeah, to go through the top 10 list one more time, just so that way, we have, everyone who's listening can do it. Shang-Chi is number 10. You can watch that on Disney+. The Mitchells vs. the Machines is number 9. You can watch that on Netflix. Free Guy will be going to Disney+, I believe, next month, or in February. That's number 8. Number 7 is Swan Song. You can watch that on Apple TV Plus. Number 6 is Coda, also on Apple TV Plus. Number 5 is The Suicide Squad, which is on HBO Max. Number 4 is Summer of Soul, or When the Revolution Could Not Be Televised. You can watch that on Hulu. Number 3 is Dune, which is getting a physical release next month, but will also be going back to HBO Max in the near future. Number 2 is Tick Tick Boom, which is on Netflix exclusively. And number 1 is Nightmare Alley, which is not yet announced where it's going to go. However, if it were to go anywhere, I'm assuming it's probably going to be Hulu, because it is Searchlight. Searchlight is owned by Disney. Disney owns Hulu. Therefore, it'll probably be on Hulu. So we'll wrap up there for this week. And next week we'll be back with regular episodes, should we end up with enough news to cover. And then we'll go back to doing movie reviews and all of that. We're starting in the new year, starting over, and we're picking up where we were. I'm going to do a Madden tribute probably Sunday, which is fitting, because I'm going to watch that Madden documentary, but I wanted to do that in the new year, so we can, start fresh. It's not going to count toward the top 10, but it will for next year, because it came out already, and I'm going to, there's going to be a long conversation about Madden, so get ready for that. So until then, have a great rest of your week.